Servus. My name is Andrei. I am a first-generation immigrant, which basically means that my family and I came over. We immigrated from Romania here to the US back in 2003 when I was 5 years old. I'm currently in my 5th year. I just finished a biology degree at Ohio State, and now I'm wrapping up a 2nd degree in exercise science. I guess starting off, a big part of why I wanted to go to OSU is I wanted to be close to my family. Growing up with my parents and my brother, that's the only family I have in the country, and so that was kind of a big thing for me, that we needed to stay close together. And so OSU is a great school, and it was awesome that it was right here in town. So I'm from the Columbus area, so that was kind of a no-brainer for me. In terms of biology and exercise science, my passion was first biology, and it kind of morphed into understanding kind of human movement and biomechanics. So that really translated from always growing up, I wanted to be a doctor, and I saw my uncle who studies medicine in Australia and he's an anatomy professor there. I was really enthralled whenever he would come to visit us and show me his work. I always wanted to see pictures from surgery and all that kind of stuff. And my parents always pushed me to tell me that I can really do anything I want here, and it couldn't be further from, that couldn't be more of the truth in terms of if you really do want to set your mind to something, there's a pathway to get there, and it's not the same path for everyone, but it's attainable. In terms of a typical day, it changes from day to day. Obviously, I think that some days, whether I'm in class or outside of class, I'm always working or tinkering with something else. So I take a lot of pride in the fact that I can do a lot of things at the same time and have a lot of little projects. So a typical day for me usually starts a little later than I wanted to in the morning, and that's actually because I work night shifts at a Nationwide Children's Hospital, working in the behavioral care unit, and so I like to sleep in a little bit because of that, but getting up, I always try to get a run in the morning, and if I don't manage that, I end up getting it in with the running club at OSU later in the day. But from there, it's really sporadic. I have ADHD, so my brain is usually all over the place, and I can't stick to one assignment for too long. But thinking into my daily habits, a few things that I always try to accomplish are just making sure I'm first taking care of myself, and then the things that I set out to do for the day. So it's very dynamic and changes from day to day, but I think that's the perfect balance for me. Yeah, funny enough, I've actually met other Romanian immigrants specifically here, but I do love OSU just because of how diverse of a campus it is. We have 50,000 students across undergrad and graduate programs, and I think it's a true testament to Ohio State looking out for students of diverse backgrounds and wanting to bring together kind of a more inclusive melting pot than maybe you'd find at other schools. I think that's a big part of why I enjoy it here so much, is the fact that I can meet people who, we're both at OSU studying in the same program, but man, we came from two parts of the world and couldn't be from different points in life. But I think that just being at Ohio State's helped me to realize that there are other people like me, but there are also other people who are very different from me. But that doesn't change the fact that we can get along just as though we've been the same person. I think that being the son of immigrants, it provides me a really unique perspective to kind of the idea of the American dream. I think that a lot of people will think about the American dream and how it's dead, but I don't really think that's the case. I think it's adapting and it's changing from what we perceived it to be in the past, but it's very much still alive, and I know that because I see it in my parents. My Dad got off the plane here with a refugee tag around his neck, and he had a bag of clothes in his hand and some change in his pocket. Now he's a homeowner, has one son in a PhD program, another son who's about to graduate with a second degree, and he couldn't be prouder of that. And it's really, that's all his investment is in. It's not a matter of him wanting to come to America because he wanted a better life for himself. He works day in and day out. He's 65 years old and he's a carpenter and a contractor, and he works with on his hands and knees day in and day out to make sure that he can provide for us. And I saw that growing up. I saw how hard it was, not only for my dad, but also for my mom. She went back to school, got another degree, and all while fighting breast cancer and heart attacks. And my childhood has seen a lot of different experiences, but I think the fact that my parents knew so much was at stake by bringing us over here really influenced me to make sure that I took every advantage of every opportunity I could have growing up. Yeah, so funny enough, I actually started out as a neuroscience major, and the transition from neuroscience to biology really came in the form of me wanting to know more about the human body, and the biology major offered me more opportunities to do that as a whole, which kind of led me down the path of exercise science. But along with that, outside of classes, I also engage with youth communities here across Columbus. I coach middle school and high school track and cross country. I'm really passionate about the sport of running, and I think that really led me to want to gain a better understanding for how to talk about the human body, how to understand it, and that almost was out of a wanting to be able to be a better coach, not something that was really for myself, but so that I can provide a better understanding to other people. So I think that's a big part of what I take out of education, is not always something that can better yourself, but how can you use your education to impact other people? I think that's one of the most important things we can be thinking about. I became a coach towards the tail end of my first year at OSU, and it was through my involvement with the organization Young Life that I started that. It was kind of out of wanting to meet more kids at the school that I led Young Life at, and that was a desire for me to be somebody who I needed when I was younger. I love the idea of using your talents in a way that is purely for others and not for yourself. And I saw coaching as a great opportunity for me to do that because it's really selfless of a thing to do, because there's nothing that I got out of volunteer coaching at a middle school. When you talk to other people about what their middle school years are like, they could tell you that it was the worst years of their lives. It was the most awkward time ever. And for me too, that was of course the case. But my thought process in wanting to start coaching was, how much better could my middle school years have been if I had a mentor to talk to me about all the changes that are happening, about, as a middle schooler, you're doing a lot of things for the first time ever, and you're making a lot of big decisions. And for me, it was wanting to be somebody who could step into those places for those younger students and those kids that just didn't really know which way to go, or didn't have a support system, and kind of be that support system for them. So coaching is a lot more to me than just running. It's about building a relationship with kids that is going to be beneficial to them, because you're not just building, I like to say I don't just build runners, I want to build kind people. That this idea that I teach my kids is that I don't care how fast you are, the world doesn't need faster people, it needs kinder people. So that's something I'd like to instill into every kid that I coach. Yeah, I'm actually wearing one of my own shirts right now underneath here. But yeah, so Run Sidious is the motto for this organization that I'm starting up. Project Sidious. This began out of necessity, and I think that's how a lot of things that I start come out of. It's me seeing a need for a space to be filled and trying to fill them. So it started out of kids wanting to run over winter that didn't have a program that provided them with important training information, ways to help benefit their diets, their understanding of how to be not just a better athlete in the off season, but also I was thinking about how can I help kids learn more about their own bodies and themselves in order to be just better people. And so the formalization of Project Sidious came to be this group that made kids feel like they had a place to be. You know, when you have a bunch of friends that run together, it's one thing. When you have something that you can stand behind and say, this is my thing and this is our thing as a team, it creates a whole different dynamic for the kids. And so that's what I wanted to create with Project Sidious, this space where they could come and they could feel like they owned it. So out of that, you know, with my entrepreneurial spirit, I was thinking about how can I brand it, how can I create a stage for them. And I love thinking about ways that, you know, I'm reaching more people other than just the kids that it's directly benefiting. So I reached out to a graphic designer in Chicago, and after some discussions with him, he decided to help me pro bono. So he did all the graphic work for us and helped me design a logo and everything we needed, including actually printing all of our first set of merchandise for the team for free. So it was a really great thing for him to be able to give back, and he was just loved what we were doing for the kids. So you know, as a coach, I hope it continues to grow. But now moving forward, I want to be able to use it as coming out of the off season into an outdoor track season. I wanted to be able to use this also as a stage to highlight runners, to kind of give them a place where they can feel pride about, you know, even just a PR. Maybe they're not the fastest kid on the team, but they can, you know, take pride in the fact that they did their best that day. And, you know, if I can do a photo shoot for them and put them on a stage where, you know, they look at themselves and think, I'm cool, man, there's no better feeling. As an entrepreneur, I think it's really important to be okay to fail. I think it's really important. I think that's the biggest lesson that you can learn, is how to take a failure and turning it. It's really cliche, but how to turn it into a learning experience. If you can't do that, then you won't be able to dust yourself off, take what you learned and adapt it to a new situation. The idea that, you know, every finish line is a starting line, as Coach Chris Pennant likes to say, is a really important idea to me as well. That, you know, is the finish line where you wanted it to be? Maybe not. Maybe your finish line was before the finish line you expected, but you still finished at some point. You still are taking something away. If you can adapt to the situation and understand what you can take away from it, it becomes a lot easier to take those learnings into a new situation. Entrepreneurship is really hard. I think that I have failed a lot more projects than I started, and I think that's the case with any entrepreneur, unless they're super lucky on the first try. You're not going to know how to do everything, and you never will. I think the best thing that you can do is bring your idea to the table with other people and be okay with sharing it, even though it's in its early stages or it's just a thought you might have had. Other people might take interest in it, and, you know, they might have skills that you won't have. And the hardest thing for me in entrepreneurship is delegating tasks. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, so I like to do everything. But the best thing that I ever did for myself was delegating other tasks to people who I knew were better than I am. Good example was the graphic designer that I worked with. I can tell you that I sat down for hours in front of a computer trying to think up of how we can brand Project Sidious. But the 2 hours that I worked with my partner Greg, you know, we were done in 2 hours, and it couldn't have been simpler. So be okay with not knowing everything, and understanding that, you know, there are other people who can help you, so keep your door open to those opportunities. In terms of future goals, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you I'd be preparing for med school right now. And while that's still on the horizon, the years that I have right now, I'm never going to really get to experience again. So I decided to leave that for a few years down the road and kind of focus on my passion projects. In this past 5 weeks, I actually started production of a film, an independent documentary that I'm doing. Have been fortunate enough to travel across the country to talk to America's Olympians, America's best athletes in track and field. Been to Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, and I just made plans to go to Kansas City and Portland to continue production of the film, to kind of talk about the growth of track and field in America in terms of how we can, it's one of America's most diverse sports in terms of the youth that are coming into it, but how can we transform that growth to new heights is what I want to be focusing on. So that's a big project that, like we mentioned before, came out of me just reaching out to people, taking the time to send emails that I would have never thought to send. And 5 weeks later, I have a full documentary on my hands that I'm trying to pursue. So I'll be doing that over this summer, so in the near future. As far as other work that I'm having right now, I'll be continuing as a mental health specialist at Nationwide Children's Hospital. I think that I serve a really important role there in being with the kids there and everything they're struggling with. So that's kind of what's on my horizon.